world-class hater. Those are the words that got ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran suspended for his job. He wrote a since-deleted scathing X post about President Trump and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and his words came back to bite him.
He writes, quote, "The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater." Moran went on to say, quote, "Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred only is a means to an end, and that end is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment."
Miller shot back, writing, "The most important fact about Terry's full public meltdown is what it shows about the corporate press in America. For decades, the privileged anchors and reporters narrating and gatekeeping our society have been radicals adopting a journalist pose. Terry pulled off his mask."
Former Meet the Press host Chuck Todd clapped back at Miller, writing, quote, "Nothing lazier or more transparently dishonest than to take one person's deleted tweet and try to apply the sentiment to an entire group of folks. Ask yourself why he wants to slime any journalist for the sins of one. It's intentionally dishonest and intentionally divisive."
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt got into the mix in a post on X, saying in part, quote, "This is unhinged and unacceptable. We have reached out to ABC to inquire about how they plan to hold Terry accountable." And that part of it I do object to. I complained for years and years and years about efforts undertaken by the Biden administration or the Biden White House to pressure social media companies to take down speech that they disagreed with. I think that was wrong. Trump, when he came to office, issued an executive order to end federal censorship, to tell federal offices and employees not to pressure social media companies to take down speech. This is clearly similar to that. The White House press secretary, she can complain about the tweet. J.D. Vance complained about the tweet. It's fine to say that the tweet was bad or that Stephen Miller's a fine, upstanding, wonderful human being. That's fine. They can be mad about it. But when she says, "I'm going to speak to ABC News about this," that is an implied threat. Now, they might have suspended him because he violated their social media policy. You know, there's supposed to be news opinion kind of difference, and this tweet was sort of getting into opinion and perspective. So if that's it, fine. But I don't like the White House weighing in here in that way and almost calling for censorship. I've complained about it when Biden people did it, so I have to be consistent here.
Well, I actually think, speaking about ABC, that they had the right to suspend him. And I think that was the right decision to make. I think this is exactly the type of ammo that President Trump has been waiting for and the entire Trump administration has been waiting for. And we know that ABC also settled the lawsuit with George Stephanopoulos and President Trump from last year. So it just seems very much like not a good time to be setting the precedent where some of the roles are getting confused. So he's actually a correspondent, a news correspondent, not an analyst, not an opinion writer, not a political commentator. And people want that distinction. I always argue that there are journalists that actually do. Yeah, I think people want objective information. And I think that it's not an issue of whether Miller's role needs to be scrutinized. It's the issue that when you're a journalist, you have to make sure you're letting people know that you're coming from a journalistic perspective. And that doesn't mean that you don't have personal opinions. That doesn't mean that you don't go vote like a normal citizen. It means that when you're in the role doing your job publicly and writing public works because you're a journalist, then that all stands by. Like retweets are essentially endorsements. People try to hide behind, "Oh, I just put it out there." But like when you're the president, I argued this about President Trump, and you're sharing something, like take a look at this. It's kind of almost like, take a look, this is an endorsement. And I think that that is something that should be real and looked at. And when you're in a role of a journalist, people are trusting that they're getting real information from you. And when you're an analyst, they trust that they're getting your informed opinion based on your perspective. I think that's totally different. And coming up as a traditional journalist, I understand the distinct difference between when I'm providing commentary and when I'm actually reading the news.
I think that difference is increasingly irrelevant. It feels almost quaint to me to now expect the straight news reporters to refrain from being too opinion-driven or tweeting about it. Like, that's from an era that is over. Most people now are getting their news from podcasts and Substack and content creators. They're getting their news from us. And we're clearly opinion havers.
I know, but
no one's looking at me and going, "Robby doesn't have opinions. He's just, straight down the middle." You know what I think.
Fine, but this is an opinion show. So what I'm explaining to you, like if you're a
I'm saying that's going to be the future.
if you're a construction worker, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Well, my perspective is this, and you're just going to change up the house based on what you like, you would get fired. That's not appropriate, right? You would get suspended at the very least from the construction project. A journalist is supposed to provide facts and information if that's your actual title for a company, and you know you're signing a contract to represent them in that way as a journalist. And so if you just go off and start doing your own thing when you sign this agreement, and that's what I'm saying.
No,
there is a conversation.
With you from an employment standpoint, yes, they have the right to do whatever with respect to him, or say these are the terms of your employment, or we only want you to report the facts and we don't want any perspective. Yes, they have that right. I agree with you. I'm just saying that is, to my mind, increasingly an outdated mode of news information gathering. People are online has totally eroded these distinctions. People are getting news from perspective-driven influencers, content creators, and journalists. Like there's no difference.
The problem with not
they stand in their lofty towers like they're so important and so unbiased and so independent-minded journalists with no just giving it to you straight. That is a fantasy. It was always a fantasy. Now we know better. Now, because of Twitter, we know that all of these people had biases and perspectives and opinions, and that's fine. Just get it out there, and then you can decide for yourself as a viewer, a listener, a reader, if you like the perspective.
I love podcasts. I think that they're welcome. More voices, the merrier. I'm open to that. But I also think that there is a need, in the same way that we kept radio around when TV came around, there is a need to keep traditional news sources around. There's an active attack on places like NPR and PBS that do report the news and provide information. No, it's not trying to keep dinosaurs, because radio is still around and thriving. Radio is thriving. And so, no, that's...
It's a meteor.
No, you need to make space. That's how life has always gone.
Here it's coming.
No, did the movie theaters go away because of Netflix? No, I think Sinners just blew the box office out. This is what I'm saying. The argument doesn't stand. Two things can both happen at the same time. We can keep traditional news sources and have people report facts and information, and we can keep podcasts endlessly flowing like they do, and people can gain perspective. But what happens with when you only have podcasts and you conflate the two is that everything is not rooted in fact. Something is just rooted in opinion and ideas and conspiracy theories. And so it does go into a space of like, oh, this is my perspective. That's the podcasting world. It's a looser.
I'm just promoting exactly what we're doing. We are telling you the news and how certain people feel about it on one side, how certain people feel about it on the other side. Then we discuss and debate it. No one watching this show thinks you and I have no views of our own. We share our views.
Of course.
But we're also doing news reporting, and I just think that something along those lines is the model of the future. Maybe I'm biased because it's us.
You know what? I also
like us.
I watch shows like this. I think everybody should watch our show, but I also think everybody can pick up a newspaper, or I'm a grandma, so I still pick up a newspaper, but actually go on a website.
You're not literally a grandma.
No, I'm not literally a grandma. I'm saying I'm like old school. I like to touch paper. But some people can just go and actually read just straight down the middle information news. Like they can read articles about stuff. And a lot of people have stopped doing that. And that's the frustrating part about social media and some of the places that people are gathering their news from, is because it's not vetted in any way. So me and you would also disagree with some of the information that comes through social media, because I think that when it's wrong and aggressively wrong, that we should correct it. And you don't think that that's our job in our government in any way. Let's
spend 30 seconds on the actual tweet. What did you make of the comment that Stephen Miller is nourished by hate?
I think that I don't like personal attacks. I don't think that it's necessary or relevant to the conversation. I think there's a way to have dialogue or have interviews. You're a journalist. Bring them to the table. Mm-hmm. Put the feet under the fire. That's what we do. And so I think that that is also an option instead of just trying to berate them on social media. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I agree with you. But it's also, I just think it's so whiny to get upset with, like, he's a public figure. He's out there, being combative with the media, saying things, expressing his views, to be like, oh, how dare you say that about our beloved little Stephen, like he's some little, baby boy. It's silly to me. Do you know what I mean? To get mad about it. It wasn't as big of a battle. This is a gladiatorial combat between people who disagree. You got to have a thicker skin than that. And I believe he does have a thicker skin. So to Karen Terry Moran over this was a bit much for me.
Okay, Israeli forces seize a Gaza aid boat carrying activist Greta Thunberg. That's next.